What's up, my dudes? My name's Briar, and today, if you didn't already see the title of this video, I'm going to give you my personal review of Brian Azzarello's Joker. So let's just get started. First thing I want to talk about is the art. I freaking loved it. Lee Bermejo is the dude who did the art, he illustrated it, and oh my god, I think it's fantastic. I mean, look at this cover. This is the cover that I got. As soon as I saw the cover, I instantly bought it. I just loved it so much. I think it looks so cool. I mean, I just can't stop looking at it. I mean, I just thought it was amazing. Like, as soon as I saw it, like I said, I bought it instantly in the comic book store without really knowing anything about it. Like, I did know of the comic, and I had planned to read it, but I didn't know anything about it. But as soon as I saw it in the store and saw that cover, I just bought it instantly. I think it's so unique and just so cool. You know, you see the big grin of the Joker. It's just, I just love it so much. I can't express how much I love it. To talk about the art inside the comic, it is also really good. Bermejo did a very good job. All the art in the comic isn't as detailed or realistic looking as the cover, which makes sense because usually you would put more time and effort into a comic book cover rather than the panels. That's not to say that Bermejo didn't put a lot of effort into his panels, but it's just, if you were thinking that the whole comic is as realistic as the cover, it's not. It's still really good though, and it is more realistic. There are a few panels that do match up the cover, sort of. They are more realistic than the others. Those are mainly just sort of big panels in it. But so, it does have a more realistic approach, but it is very stylistic. To describe it, it is very like spiky and jagged. You can especially see it with the hair and the shadows. The shadowing is very prominent. He does a lot of shadowing on the characters in the background that's just like pitch black, and a lot of this shadowing looks very jagged and stuff. And it just it's really cool and very very stylistic. It's consistent, and I really enjoyed it because I love when artists make very stylistic art, and that's different than from like normal comic book art, I suppose. I just thought it was really great. To talk about the character designs, they were also really good. This might get into sort of spoilery because I'm describing what the characters look like, but it's not too much to worry about. If you really want to avoid all spoilers, then skip to this time skip that I will put. Anyway, to talk about the characters now, this came out before the 2008 Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan, and there's a lot of people who suspect that Heath Ledger's Joker in that his character design is heavily influenced by the Joker's character design in this comic, and you definitely can see the similarities between the Jokers. They are definitely very similar in character design. You know, so the one in this comic, he has like sort of long-ish green hair that's sort of messy and wavy, and then he's got like, you know, the purple suit that's more of like a long trench coat sort of blazer type thing. And so there's definitely similarities. And then his smile is like a scar on his face and whatnot. So I think it's a really cool design. Other characters that were in it, so Harley Quinn was in it, and her character design was pretty good. I mean, you know, Harley Quinn is usually just a young blonde-haired girl, so, but her costumes, they did play an homage to her original, like, Harley Quinn costume, based from her original appearance in the 90s Batman anime series, which I thought was really cool. Most of the time, though, her outfits is more of just very casual with her red and black aesthetic. At one point, she did have a pinup look that I really enjoyed. The Penguin, he wore more of a white suit. Since they're going for a more realistic approach in this comic, they didn't change much about the Penguin because out of all of Batman's rogue gallery, he is one of the more realistic looking criminals that you could see being in the real world today, most of the time anyways. The Riddler, now they did do some big changes on the Riddler, but I really liked it. See, since they were going for a more realistic approach, they wanted the rogue gallery to see more like, instead of like villains, they wanted to be more like criminals. So the Riddler did, I think, receive the most changes. He had no shirt, just a green blazer, green pants, some like Converse sneakers. Instead of a mask, he wore sunglasses, and they gave him a limp so that he'd have an actual reason to carry the cane. It's not one of my favorite Riddler designs, but that's just because I love the campy, villainous looking Riddler more. But I do respect their approaches going for realistic, and I think it was pretty cool. Two-Face, again, they didn't do much changes. They went with the half-burnt face version of Two-Face, and he just wore a normal suit, so not much to say there. Batman was really cool. There's this one part where it looks like his cape is sort of like an endless flowing, like infinity cape. It's sort of like surrounding him. It's just in one panel, but it looks really cool. You don't see much of Batman like at all in this comic. You only really see him once, but his costume is pretty cool looking. Now, Killer Croc, I thought he was really cool. Instead of just being a straight up alligator or crocodile, again, they're going for a realistic approach, so they made him look more like a circus freak, where he still looks like a guy, but he's got a few scales. Like, he's got the texture of his skin looks like scales. He's not necessarily really green. His teeth are a bit sharper. But I thought his design was really cool because I prefer the Killer Croc that looks more human than crocodile. Anyway, to talk about the writing and stuff, I'll tell you a quick summary of the actual comic. A spoiler-free summary. The Joker is getting out of Arkham, and he sees that Gotham is divided, and so throughout the story, he's trying to get his turf back, trying to get his role back, and his power, his money, and all while this is happening, it is being narrated through the eyes of a character named Johnny Frost, who works for the Joker. He's one of the Joker's henchmen, and he's like the getaway driver, chauffeur. Anyway, I think it's a really unique and interesting take, like seeing the actions of the Joker through the eyes of one of his henchmen. I really love the idea. I think it's so cool and unique, and I think they actually did execute it really well in this. It was good pacing. It didn't feel like everything was going too fast. It didn't feel like everything was going too slow. The dialogue felt really realistic. It did feel like it was actual people talking and not just like bunch of just like stiff characters. They all felt really real, and so I really appreciated that. You're not really hanging on the edge of your seat per se, because there's not a lot of like twists and like climaxes or whatever. But what did keep me intrigued was the fact that the Joker was chaotic, and I was intrigued because I kept wanting to see his reactions. Like, I wanted to see how he'd react to this. Would he be like angry? Would he actually laugh? That's what kept me on the edge of my seat per se. The one thing that I did have a problem with was it felt like information was being skipped or it wasn't being told. So I had to read this 2 times. The first time I read it, I really didn't like the book. I was very disappointed, and I think that is because it felt like a lot of information was lost, like it wasn't stated to the reader. The second time I read it, I was able to comprehend a bit more. I understood it a bit more, but it wasn't until I read the wiki page plot summary that I was able to really get a full idea of what was going on. There's still a few things that I was confused about that the wiki page didn't really explain, but I'll give more examples during the spoilers. Maybe this was purposeful because, again, this story is being told by like a second party, so because we're not the Joker and the narrator isn't like an omniscient god who knows everything, maybe it's purposeful that information gets left out because since we are the henchmen, we wouldn't know everything that's really going on. There would be stuff that would be kept secret, or we just wouldn't know because we're like a second party, really. Now, to get into spoilers, if you don't want the book to be spoiled, I suggest you pick up yourself a copy and then come back to this video, unless you don't care about spoilers. But yeah, so here's just a few things that happen in the story that I want to comment on. So, Harley's character, she does not talk at all in the comic, which I was a bit disappointed about at first. So, I did read an interview with IGN and Brian Azzarello, and he did state that he wanted to take a different take on Harley Quinn. Most of the time she is sort of like a loudmouth, charismatic, comedic break, and especially in recent times. But he wanted to make her more muscle to the Joker, and the reason why he stated that he didn't have her say anything is because he wanted us to be scared by her silence, because we wouldn't know what she was thinking. So it would give us the feel that she's in fact more insane than the Joker. And she is indeed more of a muscle character because she does provide like more muscle than usual. She does gun down a few people and such. But I feel like there could have been at least more interaction with her that was meaningful, because it felt like her character is sort of like a cameo, but it felt like an empty cameo that was there. Like, the book would have been fine without her. I feel like they should have at least had some interaction with her, and she wouldn't even have to have spoken. It could have been like where Johnny just looks at her and she looks at him back, giving him crazy eyes or something, just at least something a bit more meaningful than like gunning a few people down. Now, a part that I did find really weird was that, so in the story there's a part where Johnny goes back to his apartment and he's in his bedroom, and in the panel that shows his bedroom there's a really big bright prominent Confederate flag right above his bed. There's like nothing else in the room except some messy paper that has nothing on it. The only noticeable thing in that room is the Confederate flag. It's not like it's just in the background and you can't see it really with a first glance. It's very prominently displayed. I thought this was really weird because it just felt like it was there for shock value or to be edgy, which I don't know. I assume that the reason why it's there is to show us that, like, to really show us how much more of like a skeezy and sort of like not so good person Johnny is. But I feel like they didn't need to show us that even more, because there are things that Johnny says and do that we already know he's not a very good person. I mean, he is working for the Joker, so we already knew he was sort of a skeezy person. I mean, I appreciate them trying to show us his character through like things in his room, because that's always a good thing when it comes to like anything that's a scene thing, drawing or TV. You can always like you can really characterize a character by the stuff they have in their room. But that was like the only thing in his room, and I thought what was even weirder is, since they're going for a very realistic approach, realistically, because Gotham City is meant to be like a New York City, or at least it's meant to be in that region. I mean, canonly, it's been stated that Gotham's in New Jersey or New Guernsey, so it is meant to be in the northern eastern part of the United States, and realistically, nobody in that region would have a Confederate flag. It's just not a thing they do up there, and New York City is like 25% black, which is a big percentage compared to other places. So, like, another reason why people aren't prominently displaying Confederate flags, it's just not a thing that they do in northern eastern parts as opposed to other places. So I just thought it was really weird, and especially realistically, since they were going for a more realistic approach. So I really think they didn't have to put that in there. The next thing I'm going to talk about might be a bit triggering because it is a sensitive topic. There is a part where the Joker rapes a character. Obviously, I'm not going to go into detail, but if it is a big problem for you or a very sensitive topic for you, I suggest you can skip to this timestamp that I'm going to give you. But anyway, so in the comic book, the Joker ends up raping Johnny's wife or ex-wife, Shelley, and this is a big thing that I thought, like that it felt information was really not given, because when I first read through the book, it felt like the Joker just raped her for no reason, and like there was no context. It felt like it was only there for shock value and to show us how bad the Joker is, and that is not something that you would use as shock value, and it is not a good way to use shock value. So I really didn't like the comic after that. Once I read through it again, I sort of understood, but again, I didn't quite. So it wasn't until I read the wiki plot summary that I finally really understood as to why, and it's because apparently when Johnny forcefully met up with Two-Face, the Joker felt cheated on by him because he didn't tell him he met with Two-Face, hence why the Joker decided to rape his wife, Shelley. But I feel like because rape is such a sensitive topic that is really hard to talk about when it comes to media and comic books, they should have just left it out. I feel like the context in this, it felt like it didn't really, it didn't really feed the plot at all. All it really showed us was how even more of an awful person the Joker is. But it's like, we already knew he was an awful person from the start with no bounds, because like he literally kills a bunch of people. And so it just felt like it wasn't needed. They really shouldn't have put it in there. And it's not an easy subject to talk about. Out of all of the media I have consumed, not just superhero media and comics, out of all the media I've consumed, the only TV show or any media that I thought did a good job about handling the topic was Jessica Jones. And that's because they had the time to talk about it, and it was from the victim's point of view and stuff. But in this, I just feel like they shouldn't have touched on it, because it's just really hard to talk about, and to give the subject justice, you need to really expand on it and whatnot. So let's talk about other parts of information that I felt was left out. So first of all, the fact that Two-Face had Shelley confused me. That's one of the things that still confuses me even after having read it 2 times and looking at the wiki plot. I'm still very confused as to why Two-Face had Shelley in the first place. I guess it's because he was sort of holding her hostage to Johnny, but they just didn't really explain that part really well, so it still feels confusing. Another big thing I was confused about that I didn't understand until I read the wiki plot was that one cop there's that one cop that's talking to Johnny and stuff. You first meet him because he goes to Johnny's apartment to talk to Johnny. I had no idea he was working for Two-Face. Like, no idea until even reading it the second time. It wasn't until the wiki plot when they said he was working for Two-Face that I knew he was working for Two-Face, which made so much more sense, because I thought he was just some random cop, and I was really confused. So that's another thing that I feel like didn't get explained, or like information was skipped over, was that cop. Let's talk about some good things, though. I loved that there were cameos of other villains. I just, with Batman comics, a lot of the time, the spotlight goes to the Joker. And that's because I feel like a lot of authors a lot of the time feel like, well, if I'm going to make a Batman comic, I have to include the Joker. Even though Batman has a bunch of other iconic villains that you could expand on. And even though this comic does center around the Joker, I still love that they gave some cameos to some other villains that are relevant in Batman's world. It was really nice to get to see some of these other characters get sort of the screen time equivalent to comics, so I really enjoyed that. I also really liked the use of Batman. He really felt like an omniscient sort of creature in this book. Like, there were many times where he wasn't in there, but it felt like he was watching over the characters. It especially helped with making the Joker seem even more unstable and crazy, because there were multiple times where he's like yelling like, I know he's watching, come out here you bat, and then Batman does not show up. So that really helped with the omniscient part of Batman that I really enjoyed. Anyway, so to conclude, loved the art. The story was pretty good. I think Brian Azzarello did a fairly good job, and I think Lee Bermejo did a fantastic job on the art. I think it was a good read. I think it was worth reading. I think I will suggest it to others if they're interested in getting into Batman comics, or if they just want to read some sort of comic or whatnot. I definitely will suggest it. I will also definitely look out for some more comics by Brian Azzarello, and more comics illustrated by Lee Bermejo. I think both of them go hand in hand, so I believe both of them work on a lot of comics together. But I will be looking forward to reading some more of their work. So yeah, that concludes my review. Thanks for watching if you watched the entire video, and I'll see you guys next time in my next review. Bye-bye!